In a shocking turn of events, I have managed to piss off the jobless once again. For what you may ask what my crime was, this time it was the Season 4 far too early tier list. Now, if you know anything about my tier list at the start of seasons for games like Rivals or Overwatch, I typically try to wait about a week, give or take, and try to play somewhere between like 20 to 50 games, depending on how hard I decide to grind. And then I also, if any pro play is on, always try to take some time to watch some pro play to get a better idea. Here's an example of a video and a post that I've seen both about it.
People are calling this tier list the most abysmal tier list ever. For those who don't know, recently Flats, a well-known Marvel Rivals streamer, made this tier list, and people instantly noticed he have way too many heroes in S tier. Some are really angry that he placed Cloak and Dagger, Jeff, and Ultron alongside Adam and put Rocket in C tier. Others are mad because he put Mr. Fantastic in D tier with Widow, while some people are just happy that he is now ruining Marvel Rivals. But I think people didn't even read the video title, where it clearly says this is an early season tier list, not the final one. So do you agree with this tier list?
Now, at this point in my career, I can't help but kind of laugh when I see stuff like this because one, you know, I think it's probably a topic for another day about drama baiting. It's funny when I watch something like this because I'm like, man, you guys know that that person does not believe what they're saying, likely, with the video stuff. And it's likely that they just want to make a couple bucks because it's a hot topic and it will make a couple bucks and it'll get clicks and it'll get engagement. Honestly, can't blame them. And I say that not to write off the criticisms for it. I think everyone's allowed to have their criticisms. And hell, even in the tier lists, I always try to say this is my opinion. And I try to formulate it both off of pro play and my own experiences with the game. And that's actually why I always, at the every tier list, I always put a little disclaimer, even though I do it live every time, like, hey, go back and watch the whole video because it's a tier list. You can't skip to the end and just look at everything and understand it because there's a lot more nuance. And I actually wanted to make this video not to talk about the complaining or the post. It's actually I think a good opportunity to talk about why tier lists exist, why I think they're good, why I think that unfortunately the debate around them in the last few years in most video games has gotten a little bit out of control, and maybe my own thoughts on how to fix it. The first thing I want to say on this is that tier lists should not dictate what you play. You are, in all likelihood, not going to be a pro player. I hate to be the one to break it to you. Statistically speaking, there's probably not a good chance. And one step further beyond that is if you are at the point where you could potentially become a pro player, you probably don't need a tier list. And you don't need my tier list to say that. Just because a character is ranked low does not mean that myself or any creator hates your character. That's not hate. We're talking objectively about the strength of it in the game currently at both a high level and at a pro level. That said, though, there's also people that always argue that tier lists should be based on rank or based on the general populace. And I think that's totally valid as well. But also, when I make these, I always say in the beginning that it's always based off my own personal experience in ranked games, as well as potential pro play that I've watched, because I get in the games with a lot of these guys. And let me tell you, as someone who has not been grinding the game as much anymore, I honestly haven't been grinding many hero shooters. I've been doing a lot more variety because I've hit a stage in my life where I don't want to be the hero shooter guy every single day. It's not something I enjoy doing every single day anymore. I've missed out on a lot of different types of games over the years, hard grinding my career in Overwatch and then into Rivals. Actually, I've never said this publicly, but I kind of was like sort of out of gas on Overwatch. It was already going into variety, come November of last year. And Rivals is actually what re-sparked my love for hero shooters. And I probably would have already made that transition last year. I was already about halfway into it. Actually, if you go back to look at my old YouTube stuff, you actually probably could see where I was kind of getting to it. Regardless, I don't want to yap about that too much. Getting back on topic about tier lists, it's going to be from my perspective. And if you think that there should be ones that are made for gold or plat or whatever, that's great. And I think that creators could do that. I encourage more people that are in those ranks to maybe even potentially make those tier lists. I say that both as like encouragement, but also maybe as a bit of a trap for you, because unfortunately, and I'm not trying to say this to be mean, you can actually get a lot more people to say this one thing is objectively bad than to try to criticize and direct things. It's funny enough, if you actually, a lot of the times, if you see a lot of people that get really angry about tier lists, if you challenge them on their opinion, and ask like, what things do you think are wildly out of place, they'll end up giving you something that seems even wilder than what the original one was, and then they'll argue, and happens almost every time. Scroll through any tier list, not just mine, like anyone's. That said, though, I like tier lists as a content creator because they're easy. Real talk, they're not a whole lot of work. But I also like tier lists because they are a good way to share complex information in a easily digestible manner. And before I expand on that, I wanted to draw a quick comparison to other real world events, or other real world shows that people love. In the sports world, there's tons of sports shows that people love to watch, from Inside the NBA, College Game Day, First Take, Sports Center. People like to talk about their interests. Gaming's no different. And Rivals is a game with a very fast heartbeat. Not a small, slow one, it's fast. Because every month there's a new hero that's added, and a balance patch every month at least, if not faster. And so the game changes pretty quickly. And to the average player, I believe that is probably incredibly difficult to keep up with. And it's probably nice to be able to be scrolling your TikTok at 11 p.m., about to go to bed, and a tier list comes across your feed of your favorite game, and you get to look and see if your favorite character is strong this season or not. Because maybe you've been playing recently and you didn't read the patch notes because you don't keep up with it. And you get to see, oh, all of a sudden, I've been kind of struggling on Squirrel Girl from like 2 weeks ago. I couldn't figure out why. Oh, she got a major nerf, and so people were considering her a lot lower on this tier list. That kind of makes sense. It almost gives you a frame of reference. Where it becomes a problem, though, is because you can't arbitrarily just put a character next to a letter and it describes the entire situation. Every character gets buffed and nerfed every season, and the way they interact with the rest of the meta is also more complex. I draw the comparison to Sports Center or to NBA First Take and stuff like that because it's like a meta report and something that people can kind of talk about. Same way you talk about sports, professional sports in a way. The difference being, instead of talking about the game itself, you're talking about actual players. People don't really talk about players like worse stuff esport wise, at least in Rivals or many games these days. So I guess that's not true. There are probably a lot of games out there, but like esports in a lot of ways, it feels like it's kind of really tapered off the last couple of years, and like the bubble kind of bursted, but I'm not trying to get into that. What I want to stay on is tier lists, and this is why I always try to make disclaimers. In the beginning, I always say it's just my opinion, high level opinion / high rank / pro play. And at the end, I always say, go back and watch the whole thing. And I can tell you from analytics, not everyone does. People like to go either to their hero directly, or they skip to like a role, they'll skip to DPS, skip to support, or they'll just try to find the S tank rank heroes, or they'll just skip right to the end and try to see what that last thing looks like. And unfortunately, this is a case where objectively the best way to give complex information, aka balanced meta report, then transformed into an easier to digest model, aka tier lists, is causing great friction for people. And where it causes friction is where people either think that tier lists or streamer tier lists are defining the meta. No, not really. And I don't think that at all. And the reason why I don't think that at all is because none of these streamers could force you into believing something. It has to have truth. And a lot of times it's more of a shooting the messenger. For example, if I went on a crusade tomorrow to tell you Mr. Fantastic is the best hero in the game, or Black Widow is the best hero in the game, do you think I could do that? Do you think I could convince every single player in the player base to start playing those heroes every game and they're going to win? And then when you tune into YouTube videos or stream videos, you're going to see those characters all over the place because I started saying that, or someone else's tier list started saying that? No, I don't think that's true. What it ends up being is it's a reflection of what people are seeing in the game. And realistically, just shooting the messenger. Where this becomes a problem, of course, is where I was referencing a little bit before. Actually, I've had to record this multiple times, or twice. Actually, twice. It's not multiple. It's twice. Because I was rambling too much in the first one. And how people will use it as a tool to either flame other people in their game, saying like, oh, that character's bad, swap. Or try to push people onto other characters, or they just like blindly follow it to pick those characters because they're strong. All of these things can be true, and not all of them are good. And going through each one real quick, no one should ever be bullying people off of a tier list and saying like you should get off this character because it's low tier. I think that's cringe. Number two, I think if you just blindly follow any tier list to try to see what characters are strong, you're going to hit a roadblock because you don't actually understand if they're why they're strong. If you just looked at a tier list and said, I'm going to pick more Invis this season because Invis is S tier and you don't understand why people are playing Invis and what situations Invis works really well in. That being said, the question becomes, I guess, where do you go from here? You know, I've actually looked at other content creators' content in other games pertaining to this. There was an interesting one in Apex where at least one creator, a couple others potentially as well. I've looked at a lot of people's content over time, but what they would do actually is make tier lists, and then they would not put a tier list on the screen. They would have a low tier, mid tier, high tier in like the thing at the bottom where it was like the chapters, but you'd have to actually watch the video to or to know where they're placed individually within that, because it would force people to actually listen instead of taking a small snippet of a picture just saying objectively this is completely correct. Meanwhile, there's a lot more nuance to it. My one personal take on tier lists is there's like little difference between A and B tier, B and C tier, A and S tier. A lot of times, if they're right next to each other, it's so nuanced because a lot of times a character might be A minus and the next one is B plus below it. And the way I've always made my tier list, it always goes from tank, DPS, then support. And so if you look at it, you'll always think whatever tank is at the far left side is potentially B plus. The only way that would work is if you actually put A plus, B minus, B plus, and then what are we gonna make it a report card here, dude? Like it's not what it is. And so there's supposed to be more nuance in the actual listening of the explanation. And whenever a character is so strong that they really do need their own category, at least myself and I've seen many other creators always do S plus or SS tier, right? And that's like a really way to like define like Wolverine, for example, at a certain point, like this is just like a broken, pick this character, you'll win every game, blah, 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 blah. So I almost kind of chuckle a little bit when I see people get really up in arms about like B and A tier and like the discrepancies between the two. Cause it's like, dude, what, okay, like if you were in school in America, right? Like our grading system is like an A is like 100 to a 90. A B plus is an 89 to an 80, right? Like, dude, if you got an 89 on your test and the guy in front of you got a 90, guess what? You got a B plus and that guy got an A minus, but you're 1 point off. So it's like, yeah, then the letter's different. Then remove the plus and the minus. It's like you have a 1 point difference between your A and your B, but because you remove the nuance of those two, they're now like light years apart. One of them's like an average student, one of them is an exceptional student, which I think is sort of ridiculous. So I guess I wanted to go from here is, how do you fix that? Because I don't think that people should not be allowed to talk about meta of a game or talk about balance of a game. Because just like with professional sports shows, a lot of times that's what people enjoy yapping about and talking about. And it's not just the creators who make the content, it's a lot of people who watch at home. They genuinely enjoy it. Most of my audience is actually on the older end, surprisingly to a lot of people. I think a lot of people who don't actually watch me and just end up seeing a clip on the line or a random post somewhere think that I have like a younger audience. Actually, my YouTube audience especially is like, I think my biggest demographic is the 25 to 35, and then the next one is technically either 18 to 25. I actually think it's 35 to 45, although Rivals has changed that a little bit. Overwatch, it was far and away 25 to 35, 35 to 45 was number 2, literally tied with 18 to 25. And so a lot of people that follow my content are older and they like to throw on a video while they're at work, in the background, on the road, not saying they're watching it, but just like having the noise. Or my own personal favorite, love to throw it on with dinner. I can't eat dinner without a YouTube video, just because. I mean, I've lived on my own for years now. It just the silence is deafening. Except when Gus is here. Gus, I don't need a YouTube video if Gus is here. He's just too adorable. Regardless, though, I guess my question is what do you want? I'm not saying that as like I'm going to stop what I'm doing, but like a genuine question to a lot of those people who get really angry at those. What do you want? Because for a lot of people, it's like, I'm confused if it's like a silencing thing, like they just don't want like opinions. I can't tell if they're upset with the format. I can't tell if they're upset with life. Because sometimes, you know, you do have to look at these and go, you know, what's the chances this is just someone who's really fucking pissed off and like, you know, they're just mad on a Tuesday, you know? But I think there's also a good amount of reflection that can be made in them and say, you know, how could the content even be better? But I think there's obviously a somewhere middle ground where potentially maybe even online sentiments over the years has just kind of clouded people's perception and almost kind of shifted video games back to the 90s or sorry, maybe not the 90s, but like the early 2010s or the late 2000s, where gaming is for nerds. And if you're good at video games, you're a fucking nerd. Because I feel like the more and more I see of online sentiment of people playing video games, anyone who actually shows any type of exceptional skill, a lot of times just kind of gets labeled as something. I'll never forget a Splitgate video I saw when Splitgate 2 was announced like 2 years ago, like before it launched and all the bullshit that happened. But like they flew out some creators to like test the demo, and someone posted a highlight reel of their clips, and like the #1 reply was like, holy shit, like this is like the most loser video I've ever seen, because they're doing a bunch of like movement text and portal text and stuff like that. And part of me kind of gets a little sad reading that, not because like it's discouraging me. I'm gonna still make the content that I want to make. It's like, are you actually mad at like the take? Are you actually mad that the opinion exists? Because you can have your own too. Like, you can make your own. And I think the amount of people that are quote unquote blindly following a tier list and using it to like straight up bully people off of characters is wildly overblown. Because if you could snap your fingers and remove all of the tier lists that exist on the internet, the same thing would still happen. The only difference is people wouldn't have as much of a fallback opinion, which actually many times when people try to invalidate my own opinions on something, that's typically what they try to do, is use some other player's high rank tier list. There's irony somewhere in that, but I ain't going to get into it. Regardless though, I did want to take a second to make this video. One, because it's one of those topics that I've always kind of enjoyed always making the tier lists in a way, but I've also not been as thrilled to make them every season, even though people love them. And I used to love making them more than anything, just because when I originally started making them, it was to share my knowledge with the general populace, especially as TikTok was growing back in the Overwatch days. Like I was one of the early Overwatch TikTok creators at the time. And I got to share a lot of my knowledge with people and help them get better at the game and have an idea on what the meta was going to be and help them win their rank games. You know, it was almost like a benefit. We're like, hey, you watch Flats' tier list? Well, guess what? You're going to have a little bit of a leg up because you know what's strong and you know what to look out for. But over time, it's kind of morphed into kind of what I was saying about the nerd thing, where it's like, yeah, you're kind of a nerd for looking at those. It's a bad thing. And it's like, quote unquote, ruining gaming. I guess it's the same thing as like people saying like, competitive gaming is ruined by sweats, and it's like, dude, everyone's just gotten good at games over the years. Like they're going to continue to get good at games, and unfortunately, if you don't have enough time to put into it, you're going to fall behind. And I'm actually no different. I've noticed it with my own skill, with not grinding as much Rivals or Overwatch as well, but I'm okay with that. I've come to terms with that. I can still hop on and compete, but I ain't going to be a pro player. That's okay. I just want to make people laugh and have a good time. And so I leave you with this. The next time you see a tier list on the internet for any game, mine or others, I want you to take a look at it. I want you to either, if it's a short or TikTok, just watch the whole thing through. Maybe think about it for a couple moments. See if there's anything that you wildly agree or disagree with. And if there is something you wildly agree or disagree with, not just the placing, but like the words that they speak, then go ahead. Maybe say something about it. But if it's not the words that they speak, it's just the random placement on the list, and you don't have anything that's like, other than you're stupid, or this is wild, or this is like, you know, like some link, like, you know what I mean? Just basically come up with like, oh, this sucks because some other version of this sucks. And then that's it. Maybe just think like, don't, might help, might not. Regardless though, if there is a way to make the tier list better and to make them more healthy, I'm open to it. And I will continue to look into ways to share knowledge in ways that are healthy and that are ways that I enjoy doing and that are also entertaining and worth people's time. And if that's something that can't be done, then, well, I guess it is what it is. I hope this helped. Sorry if it was a little bit clickbaity at the beginning. If you thought this was going to be a rant about online discourse, I easily probably could have been, but I chose to take it a bit more of a reflection / analysis of what I've seen over the last couple years / how could it be better type of moment. I hope that was okay.